I want to talk to you about the visual art style called Art Deco. Art Deco was popular in the 1920s and 30s. This was a style that was influential in architecture, furniture, jewelry, fashion, automobiles, as well as advertising. It's characterized by having bold geometric forms, bright colors, simplistic, bold images. So looking at this image for the World's Fair, again, you can see some rays, very simple linear shapes. The train is sort of posterized or cut into shapes. Got a nice circle around the outside. Look at the text and the fonts in the Art Deco style are very simplistic and bold, which is an attribute that is carried over to a lot of other work. Here we have an image of a Vogue poster or Vogue magazine cover. Notice how simplified the picture of the woman is. Not a lot of detail. We got some geometric shapes in the background. Contrast is created through the lighter and darker colors. Example of two other images here. Notice the trees are made up of three different green values. You've got an illusion of linear perspective by diagonal lines. The font, again, is big and bold. If we look at this car here, it's posterized, meaning it's cut into various shades of red, tints and shades of reds, and the shadow is very blocky. And all the black runs together. You notice the shadow and the tires run together. And here we have, it looks like some kind of a poster or a book cover. Again, this exemplifies the Art Deco style with very high geometric shapes. You've got circles and you've got lines that are diagonal, which show dynamic line. So what I want to do is I want you all to try to make a Art Deco poster using Photoshop. I already have an image of a plane. I have an idea in mind. I want to make a poster based on aviation. So I found this image on the internet and I turned it into grayscale. And I'm going to start to manipulate this image. So I'm going to drag the background layer to a new layer button and copy it and go ahead and hide the background layer. So this is our starting point. If I go up to filter, I want to start to stylize this image. And what we have here is what's called cutout, and I can adjust the number of cutouts from one simple color to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different colors. We can adjust the simplicity of the edges or the shapes. Again, we want this to look like an airplane, but still be posterized. It's a fun tool to kind of play around with so that you can make your image crisp and clean. Again, we're looking for geometric Art Deco style, so we do want this to appear to be several shapes. Once you have it the way you'd like it, go ahead and click OK. And now we have a black and white image of this airplane. You're going to notice there's a bunch of different values here. There's light gray, darker gray, gray, and black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool and I'm going to draw a little rectangle on the black area. I'm going to go up to selection and I'm going to press similar. And what should happen is now it has selected the all of the black shapes that are in this image. If I go over to my layers panel and click new layer, I'm going to go ahead and change the name of that to darks or blacks. Now that I'm on this new layer, I can go to my paint bucket and I can select a color, and I want this to kind of have a purple, be kind of a monochromatic, different tints and shades of purple. Again, we want some pretty bright, vivid colors. So I find my purple and I'm going to drag it down all the way down so it's a dark purple. I don't necessarily want the blacks to be black, but I'm going to make it a dark purple. And now simply just click in the highlighted area, and it fills all of those areas for you. So all the black is now dark purple. I can go to select, deselect, or I could hit Command D to deselect the selection. I'm going to go back to my original image and back to my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to select the next darkest value, which is the dark gray. Again, select similar, and it should have highlighted all of the dark gray values within this image. Adding a new layer, I'm going to title this dark grays, or whichever you prefer, just so that you know what the layer is. I'm going to go to my color, or my fill bucket and color selection tool, and I'm just going to raise this straight up just a little bit, so it's just a little bit of a lighter version than the dark purple. And we click on that layer and we can go ahead and fill it. And deselect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up. Basically, you want to repeat the selecting and filling process for all of the remaining layers of gray. Just remember, we want this to be a monochromatic image, so we have to keep getting lighter with the purples. And the end result should be a plane. We should be able to still tell that it's a plane that's posterized, and it's made up of entire shades of tints and shades of purple. The last little layer here, and there we have it. What you're going to notice now is I've got this background area of that light purple and really light purple, and I want to get rid of that because I want to be able to lay this image on top of another color or poster. So I'm kind of going through and just showing you the different layers of colors. And I'm just trying to show the lightest layers, the part that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to take my eraser tool, and I want to get rid of all of the color that's in the background of the plane. And you want to make sure you're on the correct layer. If you happen to make a mistake, you can always undo it by hitting Command Z or going to Edit Undo. So I'm just trying to get rid of the background imagery. So I'm going to go to the next layer, and you're going to notice there's a lot of that lighter purple back there that I need to get rid of. You can change the settings of your eraser to be a very solid erase or sort of a faded erase. I'm going to kind of leave a little bit of a halo around here, around the outside edge of the plane. Looking pretty good, getting rid of that background color. So if I turn all of my layers on now, I shouldn't have any background color behind the plane, and that's exactly how I want it to look. I'm going to go ahead and go to File and Save As, because I'm going to save this image and title it whatever you'd like. I'm going to save this as a Photoshop PDF. It sort of shrinks the size of the file, but you still will be able to open it in Photoshop. And we're going to go ahead and open up a new document. We're going to change the size. This is going to be the Art Deco poster file. Go ahead and separate the two files here. And I want to be able to apply my plane image to the new poster image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the layers by clicking the top one, holding shift and selecting the bottom one. Go ahead and grab your move tool and you can move it over to the new document. And from here I should be able to resize it and place it where I would like to in my poster file. Again, I want to hold shift down when I'm transforming the scale so that I don't lose proportion. We can go ahead and place that where we want it. Click the check mark. Notice that all of my layers transferred to the new file. Still have some background area that could probably clean up. Use my eraser and get rid of some of that stuff there. All right, next I'm going to look at the background area here behind the plane. We're going to start to develop this poster a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer, and I want to make sure that it's behind or below all of the plane layers, because again I'm working on the background. The plane's going to be in front. I'm going to go ahead and go to my fill bucket, and I just want to find a color that I can use to place in the background, something that's going to maybe contrast the plane. Still want the plane to be able to pop out. Again, I can always adjust it. It's looking a little bit better. So again, I want this to be in the style of Art Deco, so why don't we add some dynamic diagonal lines or some rays. I'm going to use the marquee tool, and I'm going to kind of stretch this out to make some triangular or diagonal rays that can go in the backgrounds. And again, we are working on the layer below the plane, so it's going to be behind the plane. I'm going to go ahead and find a new fill color, and in this case I want to use like a pale purple. Go back, we can add some more triangles here. I'll go ahead and fill it. And we'll keep repeating this process. Once those are finished, we can go ahead and rename the layer Rays. Next, I want to add sort of a rectangular bar above this plane. You can see where the propeller kind of gets cut off, the top right propeller gets cut off, so I want to kind of hide that. I'm going to add a new layer there and grab the rectangular shape tool, and let's just kind of line it up that top propeller and bring it up, and we've got a purple bar here. I'm going to lower the opacity just to see what that looks like. Play around with that. I'm going to go ahead and copy that layer, and I should have two of the same layer now. Use my move tool and just kind of play around and see what this does here. Kind of maybe make some stripes. So I've got a rectangle that's over top of a rectangle, but sort of makes an interesting border, possibly to put some font in. Grab my font tool, Change the color of it, something that's going to contrast that purple. We can also change the font style. We want something that looks Art Deco-y. A lot of times the Photoshop libraries don't have that, so what we can do is we can go online and look to download some fonts. So I'm going to type in Art Deco font into Google, and you can see there's 208 free Art Deco fonts from 1001 fonts. Pretty impressive. Ooh, yeah. Well, what we can do is we can kind of scroll through here and look for a style that you would like. And once you find one, you'll be able to download it. So there's all sorts of places where you can have free downloads of fonts. So find what you're looking for, you can click the download button, and it's going to download it down here. We're going to click on that. Find it in your download folder, and we want to double click on these. That's just a note. Don't need to click on the zip drive to unlock it. We're going to double click here for the RFF file and click install font. Should be on there. And we'll click the next one here. Install font. Awesome. Pretty cool. Install checked. And we can exit out of that. Now this should be loaded onto our program. We bring our Photoshop document back up here, and if we go to our font, just need to remember the name of it. And again, I'm trying to make this poster about aviation. So go ahead and select, type out what you want. We can select it and we can make it large, small, rescale it. And notice it's in that Art Deco font. And figure out a good position for that. Since we have our font here, we can double click on the font layer in the layers panel, and we can do some adjustments to the font. Maybe we'd like to create an outer glow, change the color, we can change the spread, and we're trying to make this stand out away from the background. Sort of a fun tool to play with here. Maybe add a stroke to the outside edge. Remember, a stroke is just an outline around things. Maybe add sort of a muted cream color around this. Something that's going to stand out off that purple. Font's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up because this is sort of review. I'm going to use my rectangular tool to add some bars, some sort of that yellow cream color that we used in the stroke of the font. I'm going to add some bars, some rectangular bars in here, and just kind of play around with some design just to sort of fill space. Again, Art Deco emphasizes bold geometric forms and bright colors, simplistic images. Playing around with the background here behind the airplane, adding a gradient overlay. We can adjust the colors. And that's looking pretty good. And I think our poster needs some more images. So I'd like to put some silhouettes of some old-fashioned planes in the background. So I'm going to type in Google search, image search for old-fashioned silhouettes of biplanes. Again, those were kind of around in the 1920s and 30s. I'm going to make sure that it's a free image, so we're not copyrighting anyone's things, and save those to the desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open that image in a new Photoshop document, and we're going to start to edit this out a little bit. So I deleted the background. I'm going to go ahead and crop out the biplane that I like. I'm going to go to Artistic Filter and Cutout just to make sure that this is simplified and it looks the way that I want it. And what we can now do is we can use the magic wand tool to mark areas that we want to delete, such as that background gray shapes. Or we can use an eraser, adjust the size of it, and get rid of some of that stuff. And these are going to be pretty small on my poster, so they don't have to be perfect. Go ahead and clean up some of the shape here with some black paint. And I'm going to go ahead and select it all. And I want to fill it with, some kind of a purple. Now I can drag that image over to my poster and should be able to resize it here. Zoom in so I can show you. Again, that layer is behind everything. I want to bring it to the top so it's on top of everything. And now I should be able to size this. Again, I'm holding shift down to maintain the proportions. And I can put that in my background. Maybe I lower the opacity of it just so it's not as vivid and bright. Maybe it looks like it's farther in the distance in the sky. I'm going to go ahead and open up the plane document again. I'm going to pick a different plane this time. Again, I'm going to crop it out. And I'm using the magic wand tool here to get rid of all the white. Just want a somewhat clean image. Now I can take my image and drag it over to my poster. Go ahead and move it up so that it's in front of the background rays. Again, kind of position that where I want it. And we can lower the opacity of that layer just so that it kind of fades in the distance. And we have a poster here. We'll go ahead and save it. You can save it as a Photoshop document or a Photoshop PDF, completely up to you. There you have it. Somewhat simple Art Deco poster.